The state of New Jersey has 10 downtowns that are so good, most American towns would take one look and just board up their main street out of shame. I'm talking walkable, I'm talking beautiful, I'm talking actual restaurants where actual chefs cook real food. Not a Buffalo Wild Wings in sight, no dying department stores, just streets people actually want to be on. These are places where you can park the car, walk for 3 hours, eat twice, buy something you didn't need, and go home feeling like a person again. These are the 10 best downtowns in the Garden State. First up, Haddonfield. Haddonfield is the kind of town where people's ancestors showed up, looked around, and said, you know what? We're done moving. Founded in 1713 by a woman named Elizabeth Haddon, who rolled up, put her name on it, and 300 years later, her name is still there. Respect. Kings Highway is the main drag, and it is legitimately one of the oldest roads in America. Colonial buildings, Victorian buildings, tiny independent shops, tea rooms, and an actual bookstore. Not a Barnes & Noble, a bookstore where the person behind the counter knows what a book is. Haddonfield is where the first nearly complete dinosaur skeleton in the entire world was dug up in 1858. Some guy named William Parker Folke was visiting a friend, heard there were big bones in a marl pit, rolled up his sleeves, and changed paleontology forever. The dinosaur is called Hadrosaurus folke. They put an 8-foot bronze statue of it right on Kings Highway and named it Hattie, and the town throws him a birthday party every year. You're walking down the street with an iced latte and you turn a corner and there's just a dinosaur. A historically significant dinosaur looking at you like you're late for something. Haddonfield is a dry town, no alcohol sales, BYOB only. These people chose, knowingly, to build one of the most charming downtowns in America and then make sure you have to bring your own wine. That's a power move. Next, Red Bank. Red Bank is Monmouth County's attempt to have a personality, and they pulled it off tremendously. It sits right on the Navesink River, it's got boats, yacht clubs, antique shops, and then it's also got Kevin Smith. One second you're sipping a cappuccino looking at a sailboat, the next second you're standing in a comic book store looking at Silent Bob's actual jacket. Broad Street is the spine. The Count Basie Center for the Arts is one of the best mid-sized theaters in the country and has hosted basically every comedian, musician, and touring Broadway show that matters. 2 minutes away is Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash, which Kevin Smith bought in 1997 for $30,000 using Clerks money. That's the most Red Bank thing I've ever heard. Man makes an indie film about a convenience store, takes the money, and buys a comic book shop in his hometown. That's an act of love. The restaurants are legit. Char Steakhouse, the Bistro on Broad, Pazzo, Dublin House if you want to get a little rowdy on a Thursday, and every other building on Broad Street looks like it was designed by someone who actually cared about what buildings look like, which in 2026 is a radical act. The vibe here is creative money. Media and music people pick Red Bank because they want NYC access without having to stand next to a finance bro on the path at 7 a.m. Red Bank is what happens when a town decides it's going to be cool and just keeps showing up for practice. Number 3, Westfield. Westfield is the downtown that looks like someone built it for a Hallmark Christmas movie and then forgot to take the set down. Lights in the trees year-round, brick sidewalks, a train station plopped right in the middle of everything. Dozens of stores, almost none of which are chains, which in North Jersey is practically a miracle. This place has a Trader Joe's right downtown on Elm Street. You can walk out of a $400 boutique carrying a cashmere sweater, and 5 minutes later, you're buying Mandarin orange chicken next to a woman in tennis whites. That's Westfield in one paragraph. The commute to Manhattan is about 50 minutes direct, which is why the entire town is full of finance dads who will corner you at a dinner party and explain what a basis point is. You didn't ask, you don't care, he's going to tell you anyway. The downtown itself is genuinely nice. There's the Rialto Theater. There's a ridiculous amount of restaurants packed into a 3-block radius. You can eat here 5 nights a week for a month and not hit the same place twice. Most American towns are begging for one decent restaurant. Westfield has 40. Number 4, Montclair. Montclair is what happens when Brooklyn gets priced out and buys a Colonial. That's the entire town. Every person you meet there used to live in Park Slope and moved, quote, for the schools. And now they run a branding agency out of a sunroom. And I have to be careful here because the second I start roasting Montclair, the comments will fill up with people going, actually, I've lived here for 20 years and I know, buddy, I know. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the Patagonia vest who just bought the $4 million house on Park Street and told his Uber driver that he's really enjoying, quote unquote, the local food scene. But the downtown delivers. Bloomfield Avenue is one of the most interesting main streets in the state. The Wellmont Theater is a beautiful old venue with serious bookings. The Montclair Art Museum, founded in 1914, was one of the very first museums in the entire country to focus on American art. They've got a whole gallery dedicated to George Inness, the guy who basically invented American landscape painting. The largest Inness collection in the world is in a suburb in Jersey. Process that. Montclair has a jazz festival every summer, a film festival, 1,000 coffee shops where somebody is writing a novel that nobody asked for, and restaurants that range from actually incredible to, listen, I'm not paying $46 for a plate of pasta with a feeling on top. Montclair is expensive and a little up its own butt, but downtown is good. Credit where it's due. Number 5, Morristown. Morristown is what you get when a downtown decides it's going to be both historically important and actively fun. Most historic downtowns are dead at 8 p.m. Morristown is just getting warmed up. The Morristown Green is the center of everything. A literal green, 300 years old. George Washington wintered his army here, twice. The winter of 1779 and 1780 was the coldest one on record, and the Continental Army was out in Jockey Hollow, basically dying, while Washington was living in the Ford Mansion a few blocks away with Alexander Hamilton and a staff of 30. That's where Hamilton started courting his wife. The Mayo Performing Arts Center brings in legitimate touring acts. South Street is packed with restaurants, bars, and a nightlife that actually happens on a Tuesday. Dublin Pub, Revolution, Iron Bar, a dozen others. There's a statue of Washington meeting Hamilton on the green, because of course there is. 300 years old and still serving food at midnight. Number 6, Collingswood. Collingswood is another great South Jersey downtown. It's a dry town, which again in New Jersey, where drinking is practically a state sport, is a wild choice. But they leaned into it. Every other restaurant on Haddon Avenue is BYOB. You grab a bottle, you walk in, and you don't pay a $9 markup on a glass of middling Cabernet. It's honest. And the food in Collingswood is genuinely fantastic. Hearthside is wood-fired everything and has been on every Best of New Jersey list for years. Zapoli is a tiny 35-seat Sicilian place with a $55 prefix that people book 3 weeks in advance. June BYOB does tableside pressed duck and foie gras like it's Paris in the 1970s. Bistro di Marino, Il Fiore, Lee Beirut. You could eat your way down Haddon Avenue for a week, and each meal would be somebody's favorite. The whole place feels like a town someone invented for a movie. Farmers market every Saturday under the train line, porches, parks, kids outside. It is pathologically pleasant. It almost makes you angry, like how dare you be this functional. Number 7, Summit. Summit is expensive. Summit is well-behaved. Summit is the kind of place where the guy mowing the lawn makes more than some of my friends. Almost 20% of the people who live there work in finance, which you can feel in the air the second you step off the train. It smells like wealth management. The downtown is designed around that train, which is part of why it works. The NJ Transit Station is cut right through the middle of town. Midtown Direct puts you in Penn Station in about 35 minutes. So the whole downtown is built for the 5:45 walk home from the train ritual. Grab flowers, grab dinner, grab something from the wine shop, walk home to a Colonial that costs $1.4 million. Springfield Avenue is the main artery. Roots Steakhouse, Huntley Tavern, independent boutiques, a really nice bookstore, coffee places that aren't Starbucks, and unlike a lot of rich North Jersey downtowns, it doesn't feel like a mall pretending to be a town. It feels like a town that happens to have rich people in it. The downside? Parking is a nightmare. The town council has been having meetings about parking for roughly the last 40 years. If you ever find yourself at a dinner party in Summit and the conversation lulls, just say the word parking out loud. You will not need to speak again for the next 90 minutes. Number 8, Lambertville. Lambertville is the antiques capital of New Jersey, officially. The Travel Channel said it, HGTV said it, and everyone agrees. It sits right on the Delaware River, connected by a steel truss bridge to New Hope, Pennsylvania, which means you can stand in one state and throw a rock into the other. Technically possible, not recommended. This is where your aunt with the good taste comes to spend a weekend. A town full of shops where the sign out front just says, antiques in a serif font, and inside there's a 4-story building packed with mid-century credenzas, stained glass, vintage records, old medical equipment for some reason, and a woman behind the counter who knows more about Eames chairs than most scholars. The People's Store has been there since 1839, 45 dealers across 4 floors. That's its own civilization. Forbes called it one of the top 15 prettiest towns in America, and for once, Forbes is not lying. Bridge Street and Union Street are lined with antique shops, art galleries, independent cafes, and the Lambertville Station, which is in a restored 19th century train depot right by the river. Rago Auctions is in town, the guy from Antiques Roadshow. World-class auctions happening casually in a river town in Hunterdon County. The whole place feels like a movie set. Cast iron street signs. The Lambertville house is from 1812 and still an inn. You walk around on a Saturday, cross the bridge into New Hope, come back, have dinner, and realize you've been outside for 6 hours and you never looked at your phone. That doesn't happen anymore. That's gone. Except apparently in Lambertville, where they forgot to let it happen. Number 9, Asbury Park. Asbury Park is officially back. Because for about 30 years, the answer to what happened to Asbury Park was a long, sad story about decay, failed redevelopment, and the boss writing a record called Greetings from Asbury Park that made the place mythical while the actual place was falling apart. That is over. Asbury now is arguably the most interesting downtown on the entire Jersey Shore. It has the boardwalk, obviously, that with Convention Hall and the Paramount Theater, both from the 1920s, both restored. But the downtown on Cookman Avenue is where the real resurrection happened. Vintage shops, independent restaurants, coffee roasters, record stores, art galleries, great bars, and a whole block that feels like Williamsburg before Williamsburg became a Chase branch. The Stone Pony is still there since 1974. Bruce played there, Bon Jovi played there, Southside Johnny basically lives there. 2 years ago, they celebrated their 50th anniversary, and the whole town showed up. 5 minutes away, you can get into a place like Pascal and Sabine and have a better meal than you'd get at some of the most expensive places in Manhattan. The crowd is a mix. Rock and roll lifers, young families who move from Brooklyn, day trippers from everywhere. Somehow it all works. Asbury Park is proof that a town can die, sit there dead for 3 decades, and come back swinging. And finally, Millburn. Millburn is arguably the quietest of the 10. It's not trying to be Montclair. It's not trying to be Summit. It's just sitting there being rich and letting everybody else do the yelling. The median household income here is over $250,000. The schools are ranked in the top 3 in the state. The mall at Short Hills is inside the township and is basically what would happen if a billionaire held a mall hostage. Chanel, Gucci. This is not where you go to return a pair of sneakers. This is where you go to spend $3,000 on a belt without making eye contact with the cashier. But the downtown proper, on Main Street and Millburn Avenue, that's a different vibe. Quiet, walkable, good restaurants, cafes, and the big one, the Paper Mill Playhouse. Paper Mill is the official state theater of New Jersey. They won the Regional Theater Tony in 2016. They've launched productions of Newsies, A Bronx Tale, Bandstand, shows that went on to Broadway, shows that launched national tours. It's a 1,200-seat theater in a converted paper mill, and they've been putting on professional theater there since 1938. So the math on Millburn is you can take the Midtown Direct train in from Manhattan, have dinner, walk to a regional production that might literally be headed to Broadway next season, and be home by 11:30. That's an unreasonable amount of convenience. Most people in America can't even get a dentist appointment that fast. So there you have it, 10 downtowns in New Jersey that most of the country doesn't even know exist. And understand, this isn't even the full list. Princeton could have been on here. Cranford, Ridgewood, Maplewood, Cape May, Hoboken. New Jersey has so many good downtowns that naming just 10 feels like it's doing a disservice. Next time somebody tells you New Jersey is just the Turnpike and Newark Airport, hand them this list.